The film opens with the police blocking a runway and shooting, and a private jet flying past them. Franklin Fausti and Sig Thorensen are flying in the jet. Now, the jet is about to crash due to police gunfire. Franklin Fausti is a blogger about achieving optimal health. Seated across from him is Sig Thorensen, a famous and wealthy businessman who has conquered the pharmaceutical market. Now, we are taken to the beginning of the story. Franklin was booking a concert at the Trinity Arena as a ticket taker, hoping to secure an interview with health and tech guru Anton Burrell for his blog. Anton Burrell is someone who was on the brink of discovering a means to optimal health that required no pills or any conventional medication. Franklin is late for his job as a ticket inspector, and there he is blamed by the chief. While engaged in checking tickets, it becomes clear that he is inexperienced for the job. There he meets Jayla. They recognize each other and Franklin invites her to dinner. She accepts the invitation and tells Franklin to come at 7 p.m. Later, she sets the alarm on Franklin's phone for 6:30 p.m. and leaves. Next, Franklin goes to meet his friend Andy. Andy is a very tech-savvy guy. He steals a triband from the Trinity Arena's employees, alters its data using Franklin's DNA, and gives it to him. Franklin uses the triband to evade the guards and enter the hall to meet Anton Burrell. After entering the hall, he observed Anton Burrell arriving in his car. Subsequently, he panicked and hid behind the stage curtain, but Anton Burrell spotted him. Anton Burrell asks Franklin who and why. Next, Burrell turns to his assistant Ingram and asks the same question. Franklin tells him that he is a blogger and is here hoping to secure an interview with Burrell. Then, Anton Burrell asks him if he doesn't own the triband he is wearing. As Franklin awkwardly waits to answer, Burrell tells him to step aside and watch his presentation. Burrell begins his presentation, giving detailed information about the newly introduced Triband 5. In the meantime, a man in protective clothing bursts into the hall, attacking the security guard at the entrance door. Just as he is about to shoot Anton Burrell, Franklin pushes a trolley toward the shooter, saving Burrell from being shot. Security officers arrive and arrest the shooter. Burrell thanks Franklin for saving his life. Franklin hands Burrell the triband he was wearing and apologizes to him. Burrell then states that he would like to grant Franklin the interview he has been hoping for and directs him to a doctor to treat the wound he sustained while confronting the shooter. After Anton Burrell leaves the stage, Franklin sees something fall onto the stage, and he picks it up. It is a ring studded with a black stone. As soon as he touches the stone, he realizes that something strange is happening. Then he realizes that he has gone back for a little while. Then the alarm set by Jayla on his phone rings. He leaves to meet her. Waiting for Jayla to arrive at the restaurant, he touches the ring once more and experiments with traveling back through time. At that time, he realized that when he touched the ring, he could only go back through time by 57 seconds, and that if he touched the stone on the ring while it was white, he would not be able to go back in time. Jayla came there after a while. She asks him if we can talk outside the restaurant. He agrees and both go out. He says that Anton Burrell has agreed to do an interview with him, and she asks about his blog. They become close through conversation, and Franklin kisses her. They then go to Franklin's house. There, they share a warm kiss, and Jayla notices a woman's handbag hanging in Franklin's closet. She pulls away from Franklin, asking whose it is. Just then, Franklin touches the ring on his hand. Taking advantage of the opportunity, he hides the handbag. Then they continue their work, and again Jayla notices a photo of a girl on his desk. When she questions it again, he touches the ring and goes down the lane through time, hiding the photo as well. Similarly, he observes Jayla's preferences in intimate moments, surprising her in ways that bring her immense joy and satisfaction. The next morning, Jayla admires Franklin and claims that he made her as happy as she had thought. She appears surprised. In the meantime, Sig Thorensen is shown joining his colleagues and observing something. They are talking about the man who saved Anton Burrell from being shot. Sig Thorensen tells one of his assistants, Calvert, to follow Franklin and find his information. It turns out that Sig Thorensen sent a shooter to kill Anton Burrell. While Franklin was cooking breakfast and chatting with Jayla, a carrier was seen taking away his car parked on the road near the house. He runs to stop it but is too late. He touches the ring and travels back through time, but not with enough time to stop the truck. He returns home feeling sad. Calvert stays near Franklin's house, observing all of it. Jayla comforts Franklin and leaves his house. He thinks it will take a long time to earn enough money to buy a new car, so he decides to go to a casino. Franklin takes the little money he has and goes to the casino. He uses all the money and places the first bet. He loses the bet, but now that he knows the winning number, he quickly touches the ring, goes back through time, and wins the bet. By betting in this manner, he wins a considerable sum of money. He buys a car of his choice with that money. In this manner, for several consecutive days, he goes to the casino, bets, wins, and earns money. One day, as he was leaving the casino after winning a bet, two men came and attacked him. They accused Franklin of cheating and winning bets. Calvert, who had been spying on Franklin in the car park, arrives and rescues Franklin from the two men. Calvert takes him to a restaurant, and while they are eating, Calvert asks Franklin how he managed to win every bet without ever losing. Franklin says, "It's my luck." "Then you should be lucky." Calvert laughs, and then he says, "Someone is willing to meet you." Franklin asks who is that. Calvert says it's Sig Thorensen. Franklin asks if it's Sig Thorensen from Rinsen Pharmaceuticals. Calvert says, "Yes." Franklin then asks, "Why does he want to meet me?" Calvert says he has seen some of the PR work you've done for other companies and believes you might have the right sensibility to put a different spin on things. Franklin refuses to meet with Sig Thorensen, scolds Thorensen, and prepares to leave. Calvert then hands Franklin a card of Sig Thorensen and says, "In case you decide you want to tell him yourself." Franklin moves into his new home. Jayla comes to meet him. She asks Franklin, "Whose apartment is this?" Franklin says he bought it new. Jayla then asks him where he got so much money. He says he bought the house with money he won from betting at the casino. Jayla says she has something to show, but her phone battery is dead. Franklin then lends her his laptop for use. She sees a photo of a girl on the laptop's lock screen and asks, "Who is this?" He says it's his twin sister, Natalie, who passed away 4 years ago. Jayla expresses her condolences to him for the passing of his sister. He mentions that his sister was addicted to Zonastin pills. He explains that despite spending all his money to help her overcome that addiction, he was unable to free her from it. Ultimately, he reveals that she succumbed to the pills and passed away. Franklin explains why he started the blog site, stating that he initiated it to prevent something like that from happening to someone else. He claims that the heads of the companies producing such drugs will be tracked down and their rackets exposed. Additionally, he mentions that the drug called Zonastin is manufactured in large quantities by Sig Thorensen's company, and he extensively covered Thorensen's unethical practices on his blog site. Later, he secures a promise from her not to disclose this to anyone, and he surprises her by giving her gifts. He takes her out to show Jayla his new car. Meanwhile, a call comes in on his phone. The call is from Anton Burrell, who asks Franklin if he has time now for the interview he has been waiting for. Franklin eagerly accepts the opportunity he has been eagerly anticipating. A car has arrived to take him to Anton Burrell. Franklin hands his car keys to Jayla and drives off to meet Burrell. Franklin meets Anton Burrell, and Burrell welcomes Franklin very warmly. He gives Franklin 2 tribands as gifts, mentioning that one is for his girlfriend. Franklin inquires whether it is the 5th-generation triband, to which Burrell responds affirmatively, stating that they are specially crafted. Franklin then interviews him. Burrell provides Franklin with detailed information about the Psi-Trinity Arena and the Triband Project. At night, he informs Jayla that he chose to meet Sig Thorensen in order to obtain information that he hadn't previously disclosed. The following day, he visits Sig Thorensen. Calvert welcomes him and escorts him to Thorensen. He meets Sig Thorensen, and Thorensen introduces his assistant, Renee Rensler, to Franklin. Thorensen brags about the luxurious life he leads. Subsequently, Franklin insults him, stating that Thorensen should take responsibility for his sister's death, and then he hits Thorensen. Simultaneously, Franklin touches his ring and travels back through time. Afterwards, they chat as usual, and to his surprise, Franklin comments on Thorensen as if reading his mind. Thorensen tells Franklin that if he truthfully reveals what will happen next, he will receive $100,000. Franklin is intrigued by the offer. Thorensen says, "I will whistle now." "What will happen?" Franklin responds, "Your dog will come and jump on your lap." As Thorensen whistles, a girl comes, kisses his neck, and massages his shoulder. Thorensen then tells Franklin that he owes him 5 articles. At that moment, Franklin touches the ring. The process begins once again, and this time, Franklin explains exactly what is going on. Thorensen is so impressed that he invites Franklin to work with him. Thorensen's assistant asks him if it isn't a risk. Thorensen replies that enemies should be kept close. That night, Franklin talks to Jayla about working with Thorensen, and he proposes to her. Jayla happily accepts. The next day, he goes to see Thorensen and agrees to work with him. Thorensen mentions that if he works honestly, he will be paid handsomely. Renee takes him to his room. After a while, a girl arrives and mentions that this is a gift for the first day. Franklin rejects her and sends her out of the room. This incident is being monitored by Thorensen's CCTV camera. He tells his assistants that he needs to set another kind of trap to uncover Franklin's secret. Then Renee suggests taking him to a place where there is a group of people and setting a trap. Thorensen adds, let's invite Franklin's girlfriend there too. At Thorensen's invitation, Franklin and Jayla set out on a trip to Miami. They board Thorensen's private jet and fly to Miami. In the meantime, Thorensen asks whether they can leave the triband they are wearing on the plane before heading to Miami. He explains that his friend, a casino owner there, prefers not to wear the triband. Franklin and Jayla agree to his request. They land in Miami. As usual, Franklin goes to the casino and wins all the bets. Thorensen employs associates to monitor his activities, but they find no trace of Franklin. At that time, Thorensen instructs Renee to go and meet with Jayla, attempting to gather information. However, this effort also fails, as Jayla is unaware of anything concerning Franklin's ring. While they are all talking, a man accidentally walks in and shoots Thorensen. The shooter continues to fire at everyone present. The shooter also targets Jayla, prompting Franklin to swiftly take action and touch the ring. Time resets once more, and Franklin looks around intently, checking the direction of the shooter. Then the shooter arrives. Franklin quickly grabs a bottle from the table and strikes the shooter on the head, causing him to fall to the ground. Thorensen stood up from his chair, surprised and alarmed. He expressed that Franklin had saved his life. Then they go back home. Jayla and Franklin engage in a late-night chat, during which Jayla informs him that Franklin is now famous for saving Thorensen's life. Meanwhile, there is news about the person who attempted to kill Thorensen. The report states that his wife Susan Miller committed suicide 2 years ago at Rinson Pharmaceutical's corporate office. Suspecting Thorensen of being responsible for her death, it is revealed that he has come to seek revenge by shooting. The next morning, Franklin goes to Thorensen's office and asks Renee, "Do you have Susan Miller's file?" Renee then asks him why he is searching for the file. Then he says, "You know, if I can clear out whatever dark cloud is still left over Mr. Thorensen and this company, that's when I'll call myself a hero." Meanwhile, Calvert informs Thorensen that he suspects Franklin is planning all of this. Then Renee comes in and tells Thorensen that Franklin asked her for Susan Miller's file. Thorensen then says, "I have to go and thank Franklin." Then Thorensen goes to meet Franklin and tells him, "Since you couldn't thank me for saving my life in Miami, now is the time." Thorensen then takes Franklin to a pub in his Ferrari. There, he gives Franklin the key to the Ferrari and says, "This gift is for you because you saved my life." There, they fill up, and Thorensen says, "I have another gift for you." Saying that, he goes upstairs with Franklin. He is taken to a room where he is told to enjoy the company of 3 girls. Thorensen records the intoxicated Franklin's antics with the girls on his phone. Franklin wakes up in the middle of the night after sitting up. Nervously, he gets up and goes to the basement, asking someone there where Thorensen is. Then he says, "Thorensen told me to give you this key," and hands him the car key. Franklin drives the Ferrari home. When he comes home, he sees that Anton Burrell has arrived. Burrell explains that he came to see Jayla's art exhibition and decided to visit here because he wanted to purchase more paintings. Jayla says that Burrell bought all her paintings. After Burrell leaves, Jayla asks Franklin why he was late. He says, "I was doing the job." Then, with anger, Jayla asks him if he is working with the cheap horse. An argument then breaks out between them, and both fall into the pool. Then Franklin touches the ring, but Jayla's hand also touches it. After traveling back in time, Jayla panicked and asks what happened. Franklin then proceeds to tell Jayla the truth about the ring. She asks why she didn't feel like this earlier. He explains that because the ring touched her hand, this time she must have felt the discharge too. She blames him and says that he deceived her for so long. She leaves angrily. Franklin decides to set his final plan into motion. He conceals a pistol at his waist and proceeds to Sig Thorensen's office. He shows the pistol to Renee and attempts to obtain the password for the safe, but it fails. He tries several times using the ring and finally manages to open the safe. After touching the ring and waiting for Renee to leave the office, he opens the safe and retrieves all the evidence he needs. After that, he contacts Andy over the phone. Franklin shows Andy all the evidence through his phone, revealing that Thorensen had taken nude videos of his former employees and blackmailed them into doing what he wanted, similar to what he did to Franklin. He asks Andy, "If I send you all this evidence, can you put it on the Jumbotron during tomorrow's basketball game and broadcast it to the world?" Andy says that if he does that, he will lose his job and end up on the street, so it cannot be done. Then Franklin says, "Check your bank account." Andy is surprised to find a large amount of money credited to the account and realizes that Franklin has already processed the transaction. Andy agrees to do the job. The next day, Franklin sent Jayla a voice message asking for her forgiveness. He told her to watch today's match, assuring her that everything would become clear. Additionally, he mentioned that he would be leaving the city for a few days and expressed his love for her. After a while, the basketball match starts, and Andy begins broadcasting all those videos one by one as the match progresses. The first video shows the murder of Susan Miller, where she is killed by one of Sig Thorensen's henchmen. Attempts to convince that it was suicide are presented with evidence. Anton Burrell is also watching this. During the broadcast, Franklin runs out of his house to escape as quickly as possible, but Thorensen's accomplices arrive and apprehend him. They take him to Thorensen, who tells Franklin that he has to make a statement claiming that the video was faked. As they approach Thorensen's jet with Franklin, Calvert arrives with Jayla. Franklin tells Jayla to touch his ring and run. Jayla touches the ring and escapes from there. Just then, the police are arriving. Thorensen and his accomplices get Franklin into the jet. The jet takes off and brings us back to the scene where the movie started. The police shooting on the jet, and a bullet hits the plane. Calvert says the plane needs to land. Thorensen tells Calvert not to land the jet and to keep going until we cross the border. He blames Franklin for all of this. Franklin is unmoved. The ring touched as Thorensen angrily pulled Franklin's arm. As time moves backward, Thorensen panics. Then he discovers that Franklin used this ring to accomplish everything. Thorensen snatches the ring from Franklin's hand and attempts to go back in time to alter the location where the jet was shot. However, too much time has elapsed, and the opportunity is lost. Franklin explains that the ring can only travel back through time for 57 seconds. Thorensen shouts, searching for a way to escape from here. Franklin then says, "I don't care if you die. You are the cause of my sister's death." A frightened and panicked Thorensen then walks to the front of the plane and tells Calvert to take the jet up. However, by then, it was too late, and the jet crashes. As Jayla goes with the police to the crash site of the jet, she sees Calvert crawling forward. When she asks him where Franklin is seen leaving the jet with Renee in tow. At that moment, the jet explodes, and Thorensen is already dead. Meanwhile, a nurse asks Franklin if I can examine you. Just then Anton Burrell comes there and says he'll be okay. Then Jayla asks, "How do you know he is okay?" Burrell then says he knows everything because of Ingram's circuit integrates with the ring. Then Franklin asks, "Did you know I had the ring?" and apologizes for not being able to deliver it to Burrell earlier. Burrell says, "Well, I wanted you to have it." Franklin asks him why. He says the moment you picked it up, Ingram determined that you could be the perfect person to. Jayla then asks if Franklin was used to test the ring. Burrell answers, "I wasn't testing the ring. I was testing him." He says that he observed how technology affects your decisions and actions. And he says, "I searched someone who has the aptitude to work with me to determine how best to use the great potential here technology for the world. So I ask you to come aboard and help me discover it." Then Franklin says you just can't go back and redo things until you get it right. And innocent people can die because of this. Therefore, he says that he cannot join this. Then Burrell says, "Give me back the ring." Franklin says, "No, this is dangerous. It's addictive. It's like the same thing that my sister was killed." He says, "So I have to destroy this." Sorry, he hits an iron box there and breaks the ring. Just then, Ingram gives Burrell a message. Then Burrell says the offer still stands, and you are the perfect partner. Franklin looked at Ingram and said, "You already have a partner." Then Burrell says he analyzes. He does what he says. "The last thing I want a man. I want someone like that, not afraid to say no. Would you assist me make a better world?" Franklin tells him, "I already did it." And he takes off the tri-band from his hand, throwing it in front of Burrell. Jayla follows suit and does the same. Then, they both leave.